Online for Authors. I'm chatting with Steven Scott Eichenblatt, author of Pretend They Are Dead. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you for having me this afternoon, and happy to be here. Although I don't know if it'll be afternoon when people are listening, but
That's
anyway,
quite all right.
it's Friday, so
Yes.
that's a good thing. We're talking on a Friday. That's
fantastic.
Good.
So it's
Yes.
wonderful to have you here. I enjoyed the book, but before we dive into the ins and outs, can you tell everyone kind of what they're going to get when they open up the cover of Pretend They Are Dead?
Sure. Pretend They Are Dead is a memoir that covers parts of my childhood, which is incredibly traumatic, and my experiences as a trial lawyer, but mainly getting to the point, overcoming some very unique obstacles, overcoming abandonment, going through a rough adoption. But there's also some humor in it. I write a chapter about my dog, which is one of my favorite chapters, and I try to blend in the good and the challenges, not the bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that idea because I lived for 14 years in an abusive marriage. So I do understand this, when you're in this traumatic situation and looking back, there always are some good times. It isn't that every moment of every single day was miserable. And so to be able to find the humor and the things, I think that was really valuable that you did that in the book. I'm curious, there are a lot of people who have been through things. And not
Sure.
everyone writes a memoir. So what is it that made Steve say, I'm going to write a memoir?
I don't know if I said that to myself exactly as much as I started. I'd gone through a couple divorces. I recognized that, I had some troubles in my marriage related to intimacy. I'm not a guy who messes around on his wife, very loyal to a fault. Intimacy meaning, well, I guess I'm not like a big hugger, I'm not a huge hugger,
right. Yeah.
not big. And so anyway, I realized I needed some help. So I went through some therapy. And as part of the therapy, I started taking my black notebooks and my pens and just started writing random stuff that came into my head. And during a certain time period, my biological father died, and it turned out he had been a writer, and I didn't know that. And I got thousands of pages of his writing. And so I just sat and I just started writing, and it sort of went from like a paragraph to a story to a chapter to a book,
Yeah.
Went through all those stages, and started out because I wanted to help myself, because that would help the rest of my family if I get someone sane. But now I'm learning that it's helping a lot of other people, which is really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. When I found out the title and what it meant, it floored me. Are you willing to talk a little bit about the title and where it came from?
Sure. My biological father left when I was about 6 or 7 years old. My parents went through a divorce. He'd been a veterinarian, and we never saw him. There was a couple of times he dropped us off, never came back during my childhood, except for one event we'll probably talk about. So anyway, in trying to figure out what a title would be, he had written a story, and he wrote thousands of pages. He was published in all kinds of magazines, won book awards. None of this I knew. And one of the stories I received after I'd gone to his funeral from one of his cousins was called Hello Yellow. And it was the story it's like his Last Supper. It was a story that was published in the 70s about his last night, the last night he spent with his kids. And he writes about picking us up and, taking us to the pool and doing all these things just like any other dad would do, and dropping us off and never telling us that he was never coming back. And in the story, there's a little drawing of a man with his back to 3 kids. Very cute. And he said he'd gone to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist said, just pretend they are dead. And that's exactly what he did.
When I heard that, first of all, I wanted to know who the psychiatrist was so that I could find him and throttle him, because what a horrible thing to tell someone. What a horrible thing for your dad. What a horrible thing for you. What a horrible thing for your siblings. Everything. And so I wondered the whole time, pretend they did, where that came from. And when that story came up in the book, I was a little angry. I was,
Yes.
I was a
Yes.
little bit angry. I'm curious, what emotions did you feel when you read that?
That is a great question, Terry. And I know you have a lot of writers out there. And I felt different things at different times. I
Okay.
really did. At first, I was sad the first time I received it, and but now I'm not angry at him. I've forgiven him, but I'm also calling a little bit of BS on him. Like he was an intelligent person. He was a writer. He's a
Right.
veterinarian, and he had to know that that's just an excuse,
Yeah.
for him writing that. That's ridiculous advice, and that's what
And
he wrote.
certainly
That's
he
what he
should have
said.
known it, right?
Yeah,
Right.
of course, of course,
Like
of
anybody
course.
should have known that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that part, I'm angry with him, or I would like to ask him. Of course, I can't, but come on, you really didn't believe it. Like what really happened, which
Right.
I do know what happened. But
Right.
anyway, but
Right.
yeah, lots of different emotions.
I can imagine. I can imagine because it brought up a lot in me as well. Reading it, I felt your pain as a little boy, not understanding what was going on. I was angry at your stepfather. I was angry at your mother. I generally, I was just, yeah. And then there were times, like you said, where I could laugh and I could see, good. And I don't know, it was a very well written, you definitely had me. I
Yeah,
mean,
thank you,
I was in
thank
the
you,
story with you.
thank,
Yeah.
thank you. Well, but one thing I'll mention too is we've heard this term a lot recently because mental health has become front and center,
Right.
is parental estrangement. So
Right.
that's, I mean, there's in my mind, there's nothing healthy about parental estrangement.
No, no.
And that's basically what it was, except we were little kids. So it wasn't
Right.
our responsibility to see him. I mean, it was all on him.
It should have
So
been on them. Right. It should have been on your parents to make sure
right,
that was happening.
that's right.
Absolutely. I'm curious, you have a very large family, especially the blended family, because there were you and your two siblings, and then your mom married a man who had three or four children.
Yeah,
Four,
four. Right.
there's seven of you, right? And then you have your own children and etc. What did your family think about this book?
Wow. That's well.
Is that a
uh,
mixed bag? I suspect
Yes,
it's a
well,
mixed bag.
yes, yeah, yeah. It's a mixed bag. So I I read a lot about memoirs as I was going through the process and trying to figure things out. And I had told my mother along the way that I was writing it, and she was supportive. She was supportive. Because she said it's your story to write, and she'd
Right,
apologize what happened and all that. So my brothers and sisters mostly turned their back on me in talking about it, even though I don't use their real names. Um, my twin sister, who I write about, I sent the book to her before I had it published. I said, "Can you read this and tell me what you think and whether anything in here is just completely fabrication and not true?" and and also, what do you think mom will think? So I got she called me when she was done, and she loved the book. She said, "You weren't tough enough, you were too easy." And I said, it's hard for me to this is my story, and she has her own story.
right,
And I said, "Well, is there anything in there that looked like that you don't remember or is greatly exaggerated?" And she said, "No, I had absolutely not." So I said, "All right, I'm going to call my mother, and I'm going to send her this because I don't want the first time for her to see it to be on the street,
right,
is
right.
yeah." So
You don't want a
yeah,
neighbor stopping her and saying, "So I saw your son wrote a book," right?
yeah, right. Exactly. And so I did. I called her. I sent her a copy of the book. I said, I just want to get your thoughts. And my mother grew up a very wealthy woman. It's in the book, and she's not a very caring mother. I mean, I love her. She's my mother. So, but she has her things. And anyway, when she called me at 6 o'clock the next morning after I sent it to her, and she said, "If you publish this, I'll commit suicide." That's what she said. And I said, I thought you were supportive. What happened to that? You went to therapy as supportive. And she said, I just can't have my friends see this. I can't. And I said, well, your friends are 90 years old. I don't know they're going to read my memoir. We don't even have the same last name. But I said, well, what's the problem? And she said, this is a quote. She said that, well, what you wrote's not true. I go, well, what's not true? And she said, we didn't have plastic on the furniture in our house. And I said, that's what you're concerned about, that we didn't have plastic on the furniture? And she said, yeah, yeah. She said, I'm from Long Island, and people in Long Island didn't have plastic on the furniture. That was for people from the Bronx. That's exactly what she said. And I was like, Mom, that is, if that's really important to you, then I'll change it. But I actually think we did have plastic on the furniture, but we weren't allowed to sit on the furniture in our house growing up anyway. And so that was the first thing. Now, since then, when you talk about it, she's come around. She went to her therapist, and I said, just don't read it, Mom. And don't read it if it's going to upset you. And so she reads like little bits and pieces, and she's 90 or 89, and I try to, I'm a good son, try to do the right thing. And then the other thing, and I know this is a long answer to your question, but
No,
it's
I
kind of,
figured it would be long.
well, this is kind of interesting because I have 5 children of
Yeah,
myself from 3 different mothers. I was divorced twice, and then I adopted a son, and we all get along actually really well. And so I have one daughter, and she was really worried about what her mom would think, what her mom would think. Her mom was my first wife. I was married to her for 20 years and had 3 children. And just like any divorce, there
right,
was some rough patches, but we
right.
get along. We get along very well now. And so I sent it to her. I said, well, I'll just send it. I'll send it to Mom, and I'll send it to her. And so I sent it to my ex-wife, and she called me and she said, this is going to be a New York Times bestseller. And she's a really smart, bright woman, well-read. She goes, this is fantastic, Steve. It's great. I wouldn't change
Yeah.
a thing. And so, because my daughter was like, my daughter, who's a writer, by the way, in California, on a television show, um, is still sort of afraid to read it, but she just gets sad. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, but because,
but
the thing is it talks a lot about how you got to be who you are, which for
right,
you is okay because you know where you are and you know how you're feeling and you've come to terms with things. But for other people to
right,
go back there with you, especially if it's someone that loves you, is probably a difficult journey because it's like, oh, they don't want to hear about Steve as a little boy who felt abandoned, or Steve as a little boy who was being abused by his stepfather, or Steve as a little boy who was being ignored by his mother, or any of those things. That's a difficult thing for a
right.
child to see with their parent.
Right. And so other than that though, I mean, there was, the response has been pretty very supportive. You'll notice on the cover of this book, which I happen to have right here,
Yeah.
um, there's 2 of us, and that's my biological father, and it's me and my twin sister, because my biological brother is not a supporter of the book. and
Right.
and I did
Right.
and I did ask him. I did call him and asked him if I could use the picture. It's a baby picture, and I said, I won't judge you. It's okay. You can say no, but I want to make sure that I ask. And he said no, and
Yeah.
so I
Well,
accepted.
yeah, I like that you recognize that, this is your story to tell, but also it's your sibling's story,
Right, right. And
from their perspective, and they may see things differently than you saw them, or may
yeah,
not be ready to explore them themselves.
they're barely mentioned, just
Yeah,
it's just for that reason, and
right.
because they have their own stories, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I am curious as well because, you've been very open that you've had 3 marriages, you have 5 children. Um,
That sounds bad.
No, it doesn't. So just, so that you don't feel so bad. I've been married 3 times as well. So you're talking to someone who
Uh,
I understand
all
where
right,
you're coming from. Okay.
sure.
Um, How did your childhood experiences shape your own journey as a dad?
Um, Uh, my experience as a child, and I think I write this specifically, is I had two fathers who were spent not a very little time with me, very little time, basically ignored me or punished me, or I spent a lot of time hiding from them, and so did my brothers and sisters.
Right.
And of course, one dad left, and then my other father adopted me, so he is my father, the adopted father, and so. I certainly didn't want to be that dad, and I always was like looking for a role model or a mentor or something, because you're a boy, you want a dad kind of thing, and I made a commitment to myself that I wasn't going to be anything like my kids, my dads, and I probably when I had my children, I was probably like overcompensated by being extraordinarily nice, and one of my kids is pretty challenging, and I love him and all, and I think I spanked him one time, but or I lost my temper, but I was a much totally involved in everything. I'm a sports person, but I'm not like a sports. Oh, my kid's gonna be a pro athlete. It's just more I enjoy watching them practice. I mean, I'm in touch with them every day. The world has changed too, because you can connect with your kids all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And I had an event last night, and my son's a lawyer in Miami. He drove up from Miami with his wife to see the book event to support me. And one of my other son came, and my daughter's in California. So anyway, it certainly made me a better dad. And
Yeah.
and I recognize what's important. And I'll tell you this, Terry, I every once in a while you'll run into one of my friends, or I'll run into somebody that complains about, well, when I was a kid, my dad, he missed a couple of my games, or that kind of thing. And
Right.
I'm like,
Right. Right.
you have no idea, man. You have
Yeah.
no,
Right.
you
Right.
take it for granted. A lot of people take their parents for granted. That's
Yeah.
just the
No,
reality.
I think that is true. I think that is true. I actually said, so I have four children, and I actually said that my children recognized what I did for them as a mother when they started having children.
Right, right,
And then
right.
all of a sudden it was like, oh,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
yeah, now
Yes,
I get
exactly.
it.
Yeah,
Now I
right.
get it, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I love kids too, and also my law career. I'm a trial lawyer. I have been for over 30 something years, and I represent tons of children pro bono as a guardian ad litem. Represent families pro bono, and
Right.
I definitely have a service heart, and a lot of that comes from being treated like crap.
Right. Well,
Most
and understanding what that feels like, and understanding like what it would have been like for you if you had someone like that who had stepped into your life and
somebody to
helped
fight,
straighten things
somebody to
out.
fight,
Right.
somebody to fight for you, somebody to fight
Right.
for you, and
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Now, in the book, at one point, you state, not in these words, but that you hated your new last name because it was long and nobody could pronounce it, nobody could spell it, and etc. So I'm curious, why did you keep it?
And that's also a question that's been asked many times, and
And like
um,
if it's none of my business, you can say so. But I
no,
was
no, no.
just,
Hey,
I
man,
was, I
I'm
was
an
just
open
really
book.
okay. I was just really curious because I thought, man, if I hated my name, like, and it represented things and a man that I didn't like, I would have a hard time with the name. So yeah, what made you stick with it?
Because I really didn't have an alternative. I wasn't gonna. My first name was Stephen Nessel, but my father abandoned me, so I wasn't
So
gonna
you didn't want
give him.
that, right?
Yeah, so I didn't want that, and my kids are Eichenblatts, and my law practice is Page and Eichenblatt, and I might. I'm into like symbolic meaning. Like if you walk in my office, you're not going to see law things. You'll see pictures of my kids or random things from cases, and if I had something really meaningful, um, I might have done it, but now
Okay.
it's a little late.
Okay. At that point, it was a name and you had it, and so you just kept it.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I get it. I do get it. I don't know. There's part of me though that I would have said, I'll just be Smith. Just
Yeah,
to make something up, right? I'll just be
I know.
Jones.
I know. I know. I know. I know.
Um, so we talked a little bit about you and your mom. How, I mean, was it difficult to discover a relationship with her again? You know, you got out of the, you eventually got out of the house. You left. You'd had enough. You said, "I'm done." You know, you leave. How was it trying to gain a relationship with your mother again? She's now 89. You say you've forgiven her. I'm sure that you have. You know, she is who she is, and you
Right.
recognize that. How did
Yeah.
you get to that spot?
That's well, once my adopted father left the house, he got caught in an affair, and my mother was abused by him.
Yeah,
And so she was afraid to leave him for many, many years. I've learned so much about my mother since the memoir. Even though she's contests some of the things I wrote, she also has told me things that are like far worse than I ever even knew.
right.
And so in some ways, the memoirs actually brought me closer to her. But as far as the relationship, I think once I matured some, and I lived in Israel, and that was an important place for her. She had spent some time there. We sort of bonded once she got rid of Richard, my stepfather, adopted father. So we kind of bonded from there. And she's so we have a really, she's a great person to talk to. She's a great person, and that's, I leave it at that.
Yeah, yeah. No, one of the reasons that I ask is that I had a very difficult relationship with my mother. And as an adult, we're fine now. We're fine. But a lot of it is I changed my perspective.
Mm,
You know, I recognized what she was capable of providing to me and
exactly.
what she was not capable of providing. And
Right.
that by me insisting that she be capable of providing something she couldn't provide, there was a lot of tension. But as soon as I recognized she can only give me what she can give me, we had a much better ability to get along because I don't expect what she can't do. And
That word
it's,
was that word was circulating in my head. Expectations.
yeah, yeah. And there is, for me at least, it has been really valuable to just recognize some people can't give you, they can't give you what they don't have to give, right? If they don't have it, they don't have it.
Right.
And
Right. Exactly.
so, you know,
Yeah.
and then I've learned as an adult, when I need something like that, I have other people in my life that I look to
Yeah.
give me those
Right.
things because, you know, so I suspect there's some of that with your mom as well. She is who she is.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
the other thing that I recognized, I think, especially becoming a parent myself, is that my mom and dad did the very best they could do. If they could have done more, they would have. Because if
Yeah.
I
That's
could have
right.
done more, I would have.
Right. Right.
Right?
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely.
Yeah,
It's good to recognize that,
it absolutely is. Yeah. Yeah.
but and when just going back real quick to the question you asked about how I'm reconnecting with my mom
Yeah.
or developing a relationship. The good thing about her being so distant as a mom growing up is I had no expectations at all. So
Right.
any attention that she gave
Felt
my
good.
kids or whatever
Right.
felt good.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's yeah, that
Yeah.
was a good thing.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, now that you've got the writing bug, your dad's a writer, you said you got a daughter who is a
So,
writer, right?
yes.
Are you going to continue writing, or was this a one and done and Steve says no more writing for me?
No, no, I love to write. No, I absolutely have. First of all, my book I probably took out probably at least 50 pages because it was so
Okay.
long. And my publisher, I have a fantastic publisher, Chris Lake Publishing. If anybody's out there and wants to ask me about them, they are fantastic people,
Super,
really,
super.
really. Because I went and met with them because I wanted to make sure that they were the real deal. Because who knows, so many scammers out there,
Yeah. Yeah.
so many, and they are fantastic people. And I met with them every Friday afternoon by Zoom, and we went through the whole book. And they kept adding, and I kept saying, I need to make it shorter. They kept saying, no, we need this scene or that scene. And so when we went through the whole book, one of the people that I work with, it's a small publishing company, and they're up at Yale. They're both from Yale, but they're up in Connecticut. Um, she said, this is a symphony, and you are the instrument, or you are the orchestra, and when we're done, we're going to read it out loud to each other and make sure that the words fit.
Right.
And that's what we did. And so as far as another book, I took out so much out of this one. I almost have one already written, but I haven't decided yet how I'm going to go about it. What I have a lot of stories. I was a 9/11 person and lawyer, pro bono lawyer, represented families, and there's some stories there. And my law career, there's some really interesting. I've been involved in some really significant cases, and so I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to how I'm going to do it, what I'm going to write about, but I want to sit right back down and get into the zone. I love
Yeah.
being in the writing zone, the
Yeah.
writing
No, I do.
zone. I know you do. I know you do. It's hard to explain to anybody who is not a writer, but I love that feeling of getting in the zone, not even knowing what I'm writing. Like
Yeah.
you're literally like just boom, it's on paper, and then you look at it, and it's either really good or really bad, like I mentioned.
So I have been writing before. I told someone this, and for someone it's never happened to, they don't understand. But it's like I'm typing and I'm coming from some place deep within that is not speaking to myself that is here sitting at the computer. And I'm typing, but as it's coming up on my screen, I'm also reading. So I'm like, but I'm reading, and as it's coming up, I'm saying things like,
Yeah,
which is crazy because I just wrote it. I
yeah,
should
yeah.
not be shocked by it, but
Right,
it's like there's two parts of me, and they don't
right.
speak very often apparently. And
Yeah,
and so it is kind of that crazy thing where you're like, wow, I wrote that.
yes,
Like,
yeah,
where did that come
yeah,
from? Yeah.
yeah. I know. And going back through my memoir, like they've asked me to do some readings, and I'll look at that and say, man, that was really good. Or,
Yeah.
oh, there's a mistake there, a little
Yeah.
typo or
Yeah.
something. Or I use that word too. I don't like using words, the same words, and
Yeah. And sometimes when I
repeat.
read it out loud, I'll catch
Yeah.
it and think, oh,
Yes.
I shouldn't
Yeah,
have done. Yeah.
exactly. It's a little yeah, that's
I think
absolutely right.
I think that's a very standard thing, Steve. Very standard. All right. So, hey guys, if you
And
want to
well, I'm
keep this
sort of a
conversation,
perfectionist too, so.
if you guys want to keep this book conversation going, head on over to Novels and Latte Book Club on Facebook. There, you're going to have a chance to win a digital copy of Pretend They Are Dead. Just tell me something you liked or learned during this conversation. So, Steve, if someone wanted to get in contact with you to talk with you about your writing, talk with you about, you said you've got a great publisher, they'd like to know more about that. How can they reach you? What's the best way to find you?
Sure. I have a website, stevenscotteichenblatt.com. That's an easy way to do it. Of course, Eichenblatt is challenging.
That's all right. I'll
Or
have it in the show notes, guys, so
yeah,
you'll be able to
so
go
so
right
that's
there.
the yeah, so that's probably the best way. I have a law firm website, Page and Eichenblatt. I'm in Orlando, Florida. Not a lot of Eichenblatts in Orlando, so that'll
Okay.
help.
All right.
All right.
Wonderful. Well, everyone run out, grab the book. You're going to really enjoy it. It is a tough read in some respects because, we're talking about a child who's been abandoned and then abused, and that can be difficult, but you did it with such grace that it was a book that kept me reading until I finished. I could not put that book down. I had to finish that up. So run out and grab it. Once you do, make sure you review it because we all need reviews. And Steve, I want to thank you so much for being with me today. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I could talk to you for a long time. I think we have been through some similar life experiences, it sounds like.
Yes, unfortunately and fortunately. So
Yes, right, right, right. That's what makes us good writers, right? You get good writers are
absolutely.
people who've been through crap. So, um,
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for being with
all right,
me.
you're welcome.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.